Journalist Kimberly Dvorak. Kimberly, this is, a lot of people are using the term proxy war, but this is indeed a proxy war. When you look at some of the dynamics going on right now, you see Vladimir Putin and Russia just going all out in Syria. We're not exactly sure the targets. They could be partially Islamic State, could be partially Syrian Free Rebels, those who oppose Bashar al-Assad. In the meantime, you have the United States blindly dropping munitions down in Syria. Who knows whose hands they're going to fall into?
Yeah, there's a little speculation as to why that military drop was made in the first place. Most likely to, get into the head of Vladimir Putin that the United States is not going to go quietly into the night, I guess.
So what did they drop? They dropped tons of munitions?
Yeah, it wasn't heavy military arsenal or anything. It was more like, weaponry, handguns, and ammunition and such. But it was still 112 pallets, it weighed 50 tons, and we don't know who ended up getting their hands on it. And even if it did end up in the hands of some of these U.S.-trained, I guess militants, we want to call them now, they're actually turning the arms over and they're selling them to the highest bidder. Because right now what they need in the Middle East is more weapons, they need more ammunition, and the United States feels comfortable providing that. Now, with regards to what you talked about over the weekend in Syria, another thing to point out here is that the Iranian soldiers, as well as Lebanon's Hezbollah, were actually the boots on the ground that Russia used in their assault, and they're actually getting very close to retaking Aleppo, and that's a huge prize for Bashar al-Assad, who let that go because he couldn't fight multiple fronts.
So this is part of the dynamic, and anyone who could see what was going on with the Iran nuke deal could figure this one out. Russia and Iran are aligned now. They are working together. Russia wants to purchase some of Iran's oil, and all of a sudden, Iran has a whole bunch of money that they're going to use to purchase things in Russia. They're trading partners now. And the foothold with Russia in Syria allows Iran to come into Syria as well. That's part of the dynamic.
Yeah, you're seeing this in Iraq as well. We've seen the U.S. military just diminish here, and you're seeing it seems like it's almost overnight since the deal was signed with the Iranians that we saw Russia decide to go in and tell the U.S. military, okay, you guys need to watch out because our planes are going to be flying over here now, and we're going to take control of the situation. Well, because the U.S. has been we've been tentative, and by the U.S. I mean the Obama administration. They've been so tentative. Our allies on the ground are going, what are you doing? You're helping us enough to say you're doing something, but not enough to actually be doing something. So I think our partners on the ground are incredibly frustrated, and in marches Putin, and he's like, hey, I'm going to save the day, and what else do they have to lose? Why not go with somebody who's actually wanting to win on the ground?
Right, and what Russia sees is what we see, I think, clearly, and that is the United States. Barack Obama has painted himself into a corner, especially in Syria, but really in the whole region of the Middle East, painted himself into a corner, and Russia sees this. They see the void. They see this timid president of the United States, not much of a commander-in-chief, not much of a leader, and they're going for it. They're filling that vacuum. They're filling that void because they want the strategic location of being near the Mediterranean, having the base there, and also they see an economic purpose for all of this too.
Yeah, I mean, there's still money, there's lots of money to be made in the region. There's a lot of resources, there's still oil, and there's also, you got to remember, it's a growing population as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in trade. And, we're seeing with the EU, they're struggling, in their economies right now, and they see the open door opportunity here in Iran. So they're kind of hanging back and saying, let's kind of see how this works out, because, this could actually help our economy as well.
Now I got to shift it to Afghanistan real quick here, and that is Barack Obama's announcement, and it was painful for the president to announce this because he wanted all U.S. troops out of Afghanistan just like Iraq. So his generals recommend a troop strength of around 10,000. He decides to leave 5,000 in there, but this is a case, once again, of Barack Obama not listening to his generals. We'll see how this one's going to turn out, but he has now a history, a 7-year history, of not listening to their advice.
Yeah, and certainly he wasn't watching the Daily Ledger, because since January of 2014, we've been reporting that there is an NIE, which is the National Intelligence Estimate report, that came out stating that by 2016, that if the U.S. withdrew, even if we continue to give them the $8 billion a year, that the Taliban would be taking over Afghanistan. And everybody needs to be reminded here, Afghanistan is a tribal nation. It's not necessarily a country. It's a tribal nation that Genghis Khan even went all the way around because he thought it was a wasteland and it wasn't worth his soldiers' lives. And this president, by leaving a small number of boots on the ground, only increases targets for the Taliban, and that's something that is unacceptable.
Yeah, well, he hasn't listened to his generals his entire time in office. You look at what happened in Libya, look what happened in Syria, look what happened in Iraq. We know the results of all this, and it's my firm belief that he's making not military decisions, not decisions that are what's best for this country, but ideological.
Watch Turkey, but watch Turkey as well. We're seeing a lot in Turkey as well. That's next.
Turkey is not going to put up with any nonsense whatsoever, and they could be more dangerous than any of these countries combined.
They could.
All right, Kimberly, thank you. Coming up next.